Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about two books that I read recently from the fabulous Becky Chambers. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, this is another instalment of my my authors series, where I've been reading the work of some authors that I'd only read a little bit of before, and catching up on some of their other stuff and seeing whether I really like them as much as I think I do. And in June, I have been spending a bit of time with Becky Chambers. I had read A Psalm for the Wild Built at the back end of 2023 and absolutely loved it. It was my number one book of the year last year. Earlier this year, or actually at the beginning of this year, I read the second in that series, the Monk and Robot series, A Prayer for the Crown Shy. Loved that as well. And so yes, was looking forward to jumping into some more of Chambers' work, albeit very different to the Monk and Robot stuff. So I picked a couple this month. So let's start with the novella then, To Be Taught If Fortunate. That's the one I read first. Got both of these out of the library, by the way. This follows a crew of an exploratory space mission called one of the Lorky missions is what it's called. It's a crew of 4 people who are tasked with going out into quite deep space, looking at planets within a particular system, and just kind of assessing them. They're not there to try and find somewhere to live or to find resources or to do anything like that. In fact, they are very much on a mission to observe. It's not about they don't want to disturb the life that might be there, etc. They are all scientists or engineers, and it's told very much as a kind of a log of the mission, a diary from Ariadne, who's one of the crew. And yeah, you follow them as they land on several different planets in the system and what they find. It reads like a scientific mission log, essentially. But that does not by any means make it dry or boring in any way, shape or form. This was fantastic. This was absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved this. It is very, very much like what I've read of Becky Chambers before in terms of its gentle quality. It's obviously much more, kind of space science fiction. Monk and Robot is very different stuff. That's solar punk. It's set on a moon, which is very much, it's got more Earth-like qualities to it. This is about, planetary exploration to places that are nothing like Earth. And sometimes I struggle with that, but in this case, absolutely not. It's not plot heavy, it's not about plot. It's about characters and relationships and ideas. And it's the ideas in this that I think are some of the most successful elements to it. It's not an adventure story. It is an adventure because they're going, they are having adventures, this crew, because they are going to these brand new places where no human has set foot before, and seeing what's there and finding all of these new life forms or kind of new geology, whatever. They are all scientists from different fields and they will all get excited over different things, so that they are having an adventure in that respect, but it's a considered scientific adventure. And when they get excited, I got excited. It was it's the characters, I think, that really sing in this. And yeah, there were some things about some of them which would annoy me if I was trapped, with them on a long mission, but they all have, plenty of redeeming features. They are very well constructed in that respect. They're not surface level. The atmosphere in this I really enjoyed. The kind of the from the descriptions of the settings of the different planets, it's kind of split up into sections which are about the different planets that they visit. There's 4 or 5, and they're all quite different, and they all pose different challenges or kind of joys, if you like. And yeah, each one was distinct, each one was fascinating, each one had something about it which allowed Chambers to talk about a different idea, a different philosophy, a different challenge, whatever it might be. Also to like bring out certain elements of the characters. So the setting really worked well at kind of, bringing to life the people in this book. The writing is again, what I expected from Chambers. It's very accessible. There is quite a bit of science stuff in here. Chambers does say in kind of acknowledgements at the end that she's not a scientist. She doesn't have a science background, but she did, with certain elements, make sure that she'd got stuff, certainly in the ballpark. That she actually made sure that it wasn't too far fetched. Her mum is a scientist, so she'd used her mum as a as a consultant on this, and other people as well, other scientists, other people she knew who had consulted for her. And it does read as kind of believable for me. I'm not a scientist, at all. But what she's talking about, there is reasoning behind it. There is enough explanation to make it seem believable, even if you're suspending disbelief to a certain extent. There is a grounding there. But her writing of the characters, her writing of dialogue, it's very natural, it's very warm. And it's, as I say, it's very accessible. It's got a rhythm to it and a poetry to it that is gentle. And compelling. She's definitely got a particular voice to her stuff, a unique voice. As I say, it's not plot heavy at all. It is, you start off with Ariadne kind of addressing the people back on Earth who she's writing these logs for, essentially. And then you get what happens when she first wakes up from what they call soma forming, which is kind of like a stasis type sort of sleep, because obviously they're traveling for many years at a time, so their time is all out of sync with Earth's. Far more time on Earth has gone by than they've experienced. So you get them waking up, and then you get the first planet that they land on, and then you get each of the subsequent planets after that. So it's kind of split up in that way. Plot wise, it's not plot heavy at all. It's not meant to be. It is a group of scientist explorers traveling around these planets and making observations and living together. It's a day in the life of scientists, essentially. It's very gentle, it's very almost domestic in some respects. It's not plot heavy, but what plot there is, it is done really well. It serves its purpose. It didn't feel light because the plot was very simple and very kind of and structured in this particular way. It works. It is as I say, for me, largely about the ideas in this. It's an extremely contemplative book, and it covers a lot of different ideas. But largely, it's kind of about our role as humans in space. What should we be up there when we go exploring? What should we be doing in terms of looking for and studying extraterrestrial life? Moral obligations, ethical considerations, that arise from that. The crew are extremely cognizant of that, that kind of, the fact that their mission is a purely observational ecological one. They do not want to interfere with any of the life forms. In fact, I think they say, Ariadne says at some point in here, it's like, it's about, you know, leave no trace. So it's kind of about how do they manage that. You know, it's about the marvel of going to these new places, the excitement of that, the fulfillment that they get out of that, what they can learn from that in terms of evolution, biology, things like that. But it's also about relationships and you know, the sort of how you manage those in that sort of situation, building close ties to people, and also being sort of distant from the rest of mankind, because they are just these 4 people off in the you know, off in deep space, and what's going back on Earth, what's going on back on Earth is a matter of concern for them. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely adored this. It's, as I say, it's a quiet, considered story. It's a slow pace, but not at all in a bad way. It should be. It's a comforting pace in that respect. There's no hurry on Chambers' parts to kind of get to an exciting bit or, you know, anything like that. It is musings very much. It's emotional, definitely. Yeah, it certainly like had that kind of effect on me anyway. I definitely felt connected to the book and the characters and the ideas. You know, it's got all of the philosophy in there that I enjoy, in terms of, you know, asking questions about things like relationships, you know, collaboration, responsibility, knowledge, wisdom, you know, living a kind life. You know, it's got all of the sort of the good stuff that I like in there when it comes to humanity and questions of humanity and what we should be and try to be as human beings. It's Chambers' writing just kind of has I don't know how to describe it really, other than it kind of has a homely feel to me. I feel very included and at ease reading her stuff. It's a space, my brain, it's a space when I inhabit it, when I'm reading her work, that feels joyful, even if the content is sometimes sad or tense or whatever. There's stakes, or, you know, there's not everything's happy, clappy, positive. But there's something about her style and the way she words things and what she thinks about and what she asks us to think about that just is, it's just me. It's just like my brain does the same things, I think. So yeah, that's the first one. I absolutely loved it. I will pop my scores up on screen for this to give you a quick breakdown of those. Okay, so characters I've given a 9 to, say well constructed, complex and great character relationships and dynamics throughout this, great voice for the characters. Atmosphere was a 10. I felt very much like, you know, I was almost along for the ride with this crew. The planets were completely, I could imagine them and see them in my head very, very easily, and they all had a very distinct atmosphere. Writing is an 8. Yeah, I really like Chambers' writing. It's accessible and you can connect to it, and she definitely has her own voice. Plot-wise, I've given it an 8 because, as I say, even though there isn't a huge amount of plot there, what is there is well thought out, and I think it's the correct amount in the book based on what this was obviously trying to do. But it works. It works as it is. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the premise of the plot. Ideas is a 9. I think it's brimming with ideas. Chambers isn't always sort of light-footed with the ideas. I think it's pretty obvious what questions she's asking. It's not something you have to kind of puzzle out, which I like that. You know, and her opinions obviously I think come across in this as well. Enjoyment for this is a 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. There is nothing really that I can find wrong with it. And yeah, as I say, that I ripped through this, absolutely ripped through this. I didn't want to put this down once I'd started it. It was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. So add all of those scores up and divide by 6, and we get a 9 out of 10. Yeah, this is a 9 and a 5 star. Yeah. Absolutely a 5 star. Thoroughly recommend this one. It's a very quick read, and it's a lovely warm read again from Becky Chambers, this one. Okay then, next up we have got The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is, as I say, is the first in the Wayfarers series of books, which I think there's 4 books of. This follows a band of crew members, essentially, on the Wayfarer ship, who are tunnellers. It is their job to construct tunnels through the fabric of space, essentially, to allow cargo ships, passenger ships, private ships, etc., to make long journeys through space. So essentially they are creating stable wormholes through space. We kind of originally sort of meet them through the eyes of a new crew member, Rosemary, who has something to hide to start with. And she comes on board as the ship's clerk to help the captain keep his paperwork in order and all that kind of stuff, really. And we meet the crew through her eyes, really, through her induction. And they are a very diverse crew, an extremely diverse crew of different species, not just humans. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 humans, and then some other sapiens, as they're referred to in here. They go and, you know, you get introduced to what they do and the physics of what they do and the practicalities of what they do in terms of tunnelling through their first job and through Rosemary's eyes. And then they get a big job offer, but it's going to be a difficult one. You know, there's some challenges to navigate, not only with the job, but with the crew as well. And Rosemary's secrets, and possibly some other secrets amongst other crew members. Yeah, another one. It's Becky Chambers. I think I'm just gonna have to admit it, that I think Becky Chambers for now is my new favourite author. This was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know, and I think it won. Did it win the Hugo, this one, or was nominated? But yeah. I'm desperate to get on with the rest of the series now after this. Again, all the characters, absolutely great. You know, again, plenty to dislike about them. Some of them a lot to dislike about. But they're all well constructed. They're all complex enough. And again, it's how Chambers puts them all together as this ensemble, as this crew, and the relationships between them. The dynamics between them that really makes them come to life. There is so much diversity in here, as I say, not just across species, but across sexuality and gender and all that kind of stuff as well. You know, the characters are extremely well placed to make some points about diversity and sex positivity. And all that kind of good stuff. You know, they're all very relatable characters, even though some of them aren't human. It's hard to use the word humanity in this because they're not all human, but you know what I mean. The atmosphere is great. The ship, this in terms of the setting, the ship, the Wayfarer is beautifully described. I can imagine it. I've got a really strong visual picture of it. I've also got a good, strong picture of kind of how the galaxy, or how how the GC, which is the Galactic Commons, which is kind of the sort of the union essentially. Of all of the different species, races, planets, governments, all that kind of stuff. It's that kind of, sort of union of everybody. How that works, the politics of it, the actual kind of world building, universe building of this is extremely well done and extremely well introduced. The writing again it's more of the same. I don't need to go on too much about the writing. It's more of the same of Chambers. Great, accessible, funny, warm, sometimes quite poetic, sometimes lyrical, but largely just very good straightforward writing. It's well constructed, it's well done, and it's very easy to read. It's homely. Again, it's homely writing. Loved the plot of this. I thought this was great. It's really well constructed. The pacing of it is fantastic. You've got lots of good ups and downs, lots of good, a few good moments, a bit of tension here and there, some, mystery, what ifs, what's going to happen next. The pacing and the structure is great. The way that Chambers introduces the various elements of this world, of the world building, through the plot, through the characters, just works beautifully for me. The thing I would say about this is, this is kind of, I don't know whether you'd call it a space opera. I get really kind of a bit baffled about what constitutes a space opera and what doesn't. But this is the sort of thing where it's set very much in a world that is not ours, where everything works differently. Yes, you've got humans, but you've got a lot of other races and species coming in. And everything works very, very differently to our world, in space, all of that. I struggle with that sometimes, in terms of getting a grip of what a particular society like that is like, and the world building. Didn't happen at all here. This just felt very, very easy going in terms of getting into all of that, because of the way that Chambers introduces these elements through the plot beats, through, as I say, through the characters, etc. Same with the ideas. There's peppered with different ideas throughout this, in terms of sort of philosophy and themes. But again, it doesn't feel forced at any point. It's just there in the writing. It's again, it's quite obvious. It's not subtle necessarily, but it's not meant to be. It's not needing to be. It's there's an openness with Chambers' writing in general, which is what I like. But there is a lot in here about again, collaboration, relationships, diversity, as I say, sex positivity, acceptance, comradeship, war, trust, politics. Just there's a ton of stuff in here, an absolute ton of stuff in here, and it's all really interesting. And it's all kind of because it's part of a series, it's all kind of set up. There's a great plot line in here which speaks to AI and sentience and stuff like that, which I really enjoyed, the way that was discussed, and that the questions that were asked about that in terms of ethics, and morals and relationships between AI and humans and all that kind of stuff. Really fantastic in terms of its ideas and its questions. Again, gentle, and not hard to understand. It's not melting stuff, but that doesn't make it any less impactful, I think, for me. it's just a book that speaks to, again, it's a book that speaks to, like, in terms of its themes and its ideas, its philosophies, just speaks to who I am and what I think, things like that. But yeah, I love this. I think my only, not niggle or anything like that, the only slight criticism I had for it was that sometimes some of the humour didn't land for me. But only on a couple of occasions. It's a minor gripe, really. And again, I would say with some of the dialogue, didn't necessarily work for me as well as the rest of it did, essentially. But neither of those make it, none of it was bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just so much of it was outstanding for me that there was a couple of bits that just let it down a little bit. So I'll go to my scores for this one then. I put them up on screen. Characters is a 9 again. Fantastic cast of characters, lots of characters in this, and I never once got lost. And their relationships between between the crew members were all really well done. They felt like a crew, they felt like a family, and that was really good. Atmosphere is a 9. I could really visualize the setting very well, and the world building was really well done, really accessibly done. Writing is another 8. Similarly to the previous book, it's the same. It's Becky Chambers. It's Becky Chambers' good, accessible style. Plot is a 9. I really enjoyed the plot of this. I thought it was very well constructed. It was utilised very well. In conjunction with all of the other elements, and it was interesting. It was well paced and sets up book 2 really nicely. The ideas in it are a 9. Again, I loved it. As I say, there's so much stuff in there, and it asks all the right questions and all that kind of stuff. And my enjoyment of it is a 9. It's, as I say, just because of that slight minor criticism about some of the humour / dialogue not working quite so much for me in this, it's a 9 rather than a 10, but I still flipping loved it. So if I add all of those scores up and divide by 6, we get an 8.83 out of 10. I will round that up to a 9 out of 10. I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to put this one on Storygraph as a 5-star or at a 4.5 yet. I'm going to sit with it for a little bit longer, and I might even reserve judgment on that until I've read another one in the series, just because it might change my perspective a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be a 4.5 or a 5. It's still a bloody brilliant book, and I am definitely pretty desperate to get on to the next one now. So yes. So there we go. That is my wrap up for my 2 Becky Chambers books that I read in June. Needless to say, I'll be reading more. Yeah, I think she's one of my favourites, if not my current favourite writer. I will. She is one that I will buy day one when she releases something. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm gonna crack on with the rest of that series and keep my eyes peeled for when she's bringing out something new. I'm hoping that she's writing some more Monk and Robot right now, but quite frankly, I'll take anything she wants to throw out there. So there we go, folks. That'll do from me. That's enough rambling on how amazing Becky Chambers is for one day. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Do drop your thoughts in the comments below if you've read either of these or any Becky Chambers. Do let me know if you're of a similar opinion to me, and let me know if you don't particularly like her stuff. If you don't, I'd be interested to hear from folks and why. What is it about her stuff that you don't like? So yeah, do drop your opinions in the comments. It's always good to hear from you. I will be back on Friday with my review for 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke, part of my science fiction project. So I do hope you'll join me for that then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.